Hello there, it's Tom here, and this is Chapter 37 of Gunnerkrigg Court, Microsat 5. So the main thing I wanted to talk about in this chapter is actually Kat's dad, Donnie. So I just wanted to talk about how he deals with the stuff that's going on in here, and why I chose him as a way to convey the stuff going on in this chapter. Right at the beginning we see familiar signs that Annie isn't doing so great. Mainly you can tell when Annie's hair is getting kind of messy. It's sort of a visual cue of when she's becoming a bit unraveled. And despite that, she's sitting there trying to show as little emotion as possible. And if someone's upset, it's natural for the people around them to become angry or upset or comforting on their behalf. And that's kind of what's happening here. And I chose to show the anger through Eglamour and the sort of comforting nature through Kat. But Donnie, since he was a friend of Annie's dad, and he can see that Annie is visibly trying to hide what's going on inside, he takes a different approach. And after Anya helps clear the room, Donnie gets right down to being practical about the situation. He doesn't come in and acknowledge the very clear fact that Annie is coming apart a little, but he also doesn't outright dismiss any of her feelings, or try to distract her in any way. He gets down to very practical physical things. He gets Annie to write down the message that she had from her father, and straight away he suggests they slip away and try and figure out what the message is all about, just the two of them, without any interference from the others. And sometimes when you're trying to hide the fact that you're upset or dealing with a tough problem, the last thing you want is people around you trying to comfort you. And Donnie is kind of aware of this, making an educated guess on how Annie's dad used to act. And we sort of go into a little bit of their history. And I wanted to show that a lot of the history between Donald and Tony is kind of similar to how Kat and Annie act with each other. Donnie tells Annie a little story of a kind of embarrassing moment that her dad went through when they were younger. And it's basically a story that kind of hints that Tony suffers from probably a very severe case of social anxiety. And Donnie, since he's pretty close to him, he sees a different side of it. And if we take into account how Annie and Kat act with each other, the two of them have become very close, and Annie expresses a full range of emotions with Kat, anger and sadness or happiness and stuff. But if you were to picture Annie from her classmate's point of view, you'd probably still picture somebody who's very cold and awkward. And I've tried to convey that sometimes in the story. Even Annie sometimes picking up that the friends around her are a little bit standoffish or unsure of how to act around her. And Donnie's not doing this to make any sort of excuse for her dad. He's just explaining that sometimes the things Tony does might not quite be what they seem. And again, he's not offering what would be called the sort of traditional emotional support that you'd expect. He's not telling Annie everything's going to be okay and coddling her and giving her a bunch of emotional platitudes. He's just telling a story as it happened, while the two of them get down to the task at hand of figuring out this message and then acting upon it. And I guess a word on Donnie's personality. He's not exactly the touchy-feely type. He's not trying to hide anything from Annie or try outright to make her feel better, at least in the sense that one might think. Instead, I think there is a kind of emotional support you can lend someone without trying to coax their emotion out of them or try to get them to express their anger or their sadness outright in front of them. Especially in the case of Annie or even Tony back in the day, I guess. Somebody who might be a little bit proud of their own emotions or proud of hiding their feelings in front of people. And so the way Donnie deals with this is allowing them to keep their emotions guarded, but still be there for emotional support. And I think there is some value in that sort of emotional support, the kind where you allow the person a bit of space to work through their own things. And if they do decide to express anything to you, then it's of their own volition, not because you tried to make any sort of outward display of emotion. And over the course of the chapter, we can see that Annie's hair gets a bit tidier as it progresses. The stray strands that are poking out sort of come back together. And I did this to show that she's sort of pulling herself together emotionally with Donnie's help. And even towards the end of the chapter, she starts smiling again, and the two of them are just chatting while they're waiting for this microsatellite. And another thing, throughout the course of the chapter, Donald doesn't focus on the age difference between the two of them. He doesn't talk to her like she's a child, or try to dwell on the fact that as a grown-up he probably knows better than she does and has more life experience. He just tells her what he needs her to do, what he's doing, and tells a few stories of her dad along the way. Like I said a second ago, I think it's a subtler form of emotional support that I tried to convey, and it's the kind that I like to see in stories. And here, at the end of the chapter, when they've finally set up the little launch pad and sent off the payload that they were asked to deliver, sent it up to Microsat 5, there isn't some huge emotional release at the end. Donnie knew all along that figuring out the message and accomplishing the task at hand wasn't going to be some big emotional revelation. And when Annie, after seeing the two dots of light just disappear up into the sky, when she asks if that's it, Donnie just outright says that's it, because there's not really anything else. he can offer her or that she can expect from the situation that unfolded. And very unceremoniously, the task at hand is over, and so is the chapter. And the bonus page just shows that Anya also helped in her own way, basically by getting the others out of the way so that Donnie and Annie can go off and accomplish their task. And this is something I like about Anya and Donald's relationship, how the two of them are very much in sync and how they act in tandem. And it's something that I want to explore later on down the line. And that is that. Come back again for Chapter 38, Divine.